So the point I want to make is this: having problems in your life is not the issue. Having shame is the real issue. The challenge comes when many of us we ask you to be authentic, we ask you to let go of what people think, and then you started to have this self-talk of, what if I think I'm enough, but other people don't think that I'm enough? What if I let my imperfect self be seen and known? Nobody likes what they see, and then there starts to be this kind of conflict between your expectation and other people's expectation. So I just wanted to share this part because I know it's not like after the book review immediately you become extremely authentic, right? It is a daily practice, right? And this daily practice serves as a reminder for you, right, to let go of what people think. I know it's not easy because even for me, I still care a lot about what people think as well. I want you guys to really write this down so it serves as a reminder for yourself, right? It's that authenticity, being real to yourself, right? It's a daily practice of letting go of who we think we are supposed to be and embrace who we are. In simple terms, self-acceptance. Back to self-acceptance again. The trick to do this, see, you can let go the thoughts of you having to think, feel, or look different. Instead, right, focus on the thing that you like about yourself. So how I do it for myself is I just focus on the things that I like about myself first. Once I am full, once I am real to myself, then I started reflecting on how to improve. So for example, last time, right, whenever I have a rejection, I remember one of the trainers taught me this thing, right, which is, if the person don't buy from you, it means that person is stupid, right? You got to believe that whatever that you do is the best for the person. That means it's the best available choice, and this person didn't take it up, it means this person is stupid. But is it useful to me? It's useful to me at the start because at least I protected my morale. I am authentic to myself. And then subsequently, then afterwards, I start thinking about, okay, how to improve. So the first thing is to always focus on what you like about yourself first, so that it's easier for you to practice that authenticity about yourself. Second thing is, if ever you need to choose, right, being liked or being authentic, write this down, right? If authenticity is your goal, right, you may get your feelings hurt, but you rarely feel shame, right? So what this means is that if authenticity is the goal and they don't like me, right, I may feel a bit disappointed, I may feel frustrated, I may feel depressed, but I'm okay because there's no regret in that. Right, because I can accept myself for who I am, I don't need acceptance for them. But if the goal is being liked, that means I need people to like me. And if they don't like me, then I'm in trouble. So what I've realized is this, right? Being rejected is better than living with regrets. So in this aspect, I choose the principle of choosing the pain that we want. If I reach out to people, I may feel, I may face rejection, and that may be scary. But if I don't reach out, right, I may have regrets, right? And that regret is more painful than rejection. So the next part about this is that courage is actually contagious. We need to be brave, right, so that others can be brave with us. So if you're not authentic with people, how can people be authentic with you? Do you realize that very often when you ask people how they are, they will always reply with, everything is awesome, everything is good, right? As if, right, they have no issues with their life. The question that you can always remind yourself during appointments, during social gatherings, during any conversation with people, right, is this: write this question out. Do people feel safe enough to be themselves with you? If you want to see yourself being able to connect faster, to build trust faster, right, this is one question you've got to remind yourself. Do people feel safe enough to be themselves with you? Because being authentic requires courage, right? And if you're not courageous, if you are not brave, how can they be brave? So if you always find yourself disconnected, you are always attracting surface friends who can never go deep, ask yourself something: have you been authentic with them in the first place? Because if you cannot be real and share your vulnerability or struggles, people will also find it hard to share that with you. The objective here is for you to build enough trust to a level where they are found vulnerable enough to share with you what are some of the challenges or problems that they are. So in order to do that, you've got to be brave first so that they can be brave themselves to share those vulnerability with you. Okay, so one way we can do that is to remind yourself that your past does not define you and your future. So in order for you to be authentic, right, and it's easier for you to be authentic, right, is when you are able to forgive and accept yourself, right, instead of blaming yourself or others, right, about your past. Being worthy doesn't mean you never make mistakes. It just means that you can accept and forgive yourself. You can write this down. You know why? You can, because you realize that those mistakes, right, are just lessons from the past. Right? You can make a new decision from those lessons, and it doesn't define you. One of the reasons why you don't feel you're good enough is because you have this idea of perfectionism, and this is also the great excuse for procrastination. Perfectionism, right, is the belief that if we live perfect, we look perfect, can minimize the pain of judgment or shame. How do we overcome perfectionism? To me, it's never work towards perfection, work towards progression. That's always my punchline for myself, because I realized that there's no such thing as perfect, right? Why? Because when you think you have a perfect life, like if I ask you, do you have a perfect life? You say yes. If you think you have a perfect life, then you will ask yourself, what's next? Then you start to have another idea of what perfect life is. This is something that we can all have in common lingo, which is this: there's no such thing as a perfect life. There's only a more happier, easier life. Right? Because perfection is an unattainable thing, right? Perfection is also not self-improvement, right? It's basically at its core trying to earn approval and acceptance from others. So a healthy self-improvement is self-focused, right? How can I improve? There's progress, right? But perfectionism, right, is about perception. It's about other people's focus, right? What other people think. So if you hang on to the idea of perfectionism, right, you hang your self-worth, right, on the expectation of others because you want to be perceived as perfect. And that's an unattainable goal because there's no way you can control perception. One thing that you can write down to help you cope better or to eliminate perfectionism is this, right? You will be less concerned about what other people think of you when you realize how seldom they do. Okay, this is another part about perfection, right? I'm enough doesn't mean you're perfect, right? I want you to think about a person who you really admire. I want you to ask yourself, this person, are they totally flawless? That means they have no shortcomings. Chances are, if you think deeper, somehow they have their imperfections as well. But it doesn't matter to you, because the truth is that you saw something in them that make their flaws less visible, and you value them for their good qualities. And that's something that I want to tell you, right? You don't need to be perfect to be loved, because you don't love others because they are perfect. Okay, this will be the last one that I will be covering for today, right? Which is cultivating creativity, letting go of comparison. This is also one of the guideposts that speaks to me, right? Because if you know me personally, you'll know that I'm very competitive by nature. In fact, competition was my number one strength. On the other hand, I also realized behind every strength, it can also be one of my greatest weakness as well. Why? Because I know, right? Comparison very often result in what? Resentment, right? Resentment towards others, resentment towards ourselves. Do you realize that, when you start constantly competing and comparing yourself, you find yourself very bitter and unhappy person? The fact is that, comparison, our brain uses comparison to figure out how we measure up to other people. So CK, right, it's usually at the start of the year or the end of every year, right, I'll start talking to CK about what's next for next year, right? And then I will always compare myself with some of my friends, that are doing well. And this part actually made me realize that, no matter which level I am at, right, I'm always unhappy. So what's my main point? Main point is that comparison actually causes you to have low self-confidence, depression. So if you find yourself having low self-esteem or self-confidence, maybe you want to remind yourself, have you been comparing too much? Have you been, who are you comparing yourself to, right? That make you feel lousy about yourself, right? That make you feel that, others are doing better than you. This is something I want to cover a little bit on. I'm not saying that competition is a bad thing. I will still like to compete. I will still compete to win. I'm saying that if it affects your confidence, if it affects your self-worth and self-esteem, then you got to take note of this, right? Because comparison, number one, it breeds conformity. It means the need to fit in. We don't compare ourselves with others that's totally different, because there's nothing to compare, right? We can compare our things. We compare on things that's similar in nature. It could be like, we just want to be better in the group that we are at, right? It means that you want to be a better version, okay? So what happens is that if you just want to be better in your group, you're actually very boring, right? Because if you find yourself comparing, you realize that the more you compare, the more boring you get, because you're just using that person as a benchmark and becoming more similar to this person, right? So the more you compare, the more boring you get. Number two, right, you also realize that if you really want to stand out, in your pitch, in your presentation, in your social media, right, what you need is not to be better. What you need is to be different. And that is why if you realize in IEM or in YOLO or in API side, where we all practice teaching the 1% content instead of the 99% content that other people out there is talking about. And you realize that what we need is not an improvement offer, right? What we need is a new opportunity offer. And that is why you realize over here, what we talk about is working towards more, happier, easier, and SPI. So what you want at the end of the day is to be incomparable. So the less comparable you are, the more interesting you will be. And stop comparing yourself with others because you are not comparable. Thirdly, if your customer asks you to compare, usually comparisons are, you need to understand comparisons are always unfair, right? Because we usually compare the worst we know about ourselves to the best we assume about others, right? We usually tend to compare just one single thing, but you realize that our life is not one single thing, right? Neither is other people's life one single thing. So the reason why it's unfair is because you don't usually look at the whole picture, right? Because people don't present the whole picture to you. So if you think that other is doing better, maybe for that single issue, yes, probably is doing better, but in other areas, it may not be better than you. I want you to write this down. This will be one of my last slide already, which is you are too unique to be compared fairly. You are too unique to be compared fairly. Your combination of your strengths, your personality, your talents is entirely unique to you. They can never be properly compared to anyone else. So if you can't compare, just accept the fact that it's not better, it's just different, right? There are certain things in life that you just cannot compare. Last slide would be this. If you are evaluating your worth by comparing yourself to others, you'll always be losing, okay? If you're evaluating your worth by comparing yourself with others, you'll always be losing. You know why? Because when you constantly compare yourself to others, you waste your energy focusing on other people's life rather than your own life. And whenever you focus on other people's life or what other people have that you don't have, you give away control, you give away power. Why do you want to do that? If you really want to compare with someone, compare yourself with you. A better way to compare yourself to you is to compare who you were yesterday, not someone else today. So in this way, you'll be much more productive, much more fulfilling, right? And focusing on your own game instead of other people's game. And with that, I'll pass on the segment to CK.
Everyone, I'd just like to use the next 30 minutes to chat with all of you. Some things are what Dylan has talked about. I just want to talk to you about it because there's no point listening to something but you don't act on it. Why? Because action creates feelings, correct? Everyone, ask your question. Just now Dylan covered something called identity create action. Action create feeling. When people use the word, what is my identity? People like to get into these two questions, which sounds deep, but it's actually nonsensical. Okay? Now, but why am I telling you all this? Is because the nonsensical thing that this internet world that we live in is trying to sell you is this. When I say identity create action, action create feelings, people will zoom in on the word identity and ask myself this question. First question, who am I? Second question, why am I doing this? Now write down those two questions on paper and then put 3 crosses beside them. Then bracket, put this is a waste of time. Never mind, I share screen, I draw for you. Okay? Don't show people this video recording, okay? You see, everyone, when people use the word what is my identity, because Dylan say it creates my action and then it leads to my feeling. Fair enough. This is what we have been talking about all day long, right? Then people like to don't know why act sibei deep and then they ask themselves this question: who am I? Okay. Second question: why am I doing this? Okay, let me show you why this doesn't make sense. Okay, just now Dylan gave a great example. You go in, you play a game. Okay, I don't know what games you're playing now, because I think Street Fighter, you go into an arcade now, you still see it around, right? Correct? Okay? So you choose the character that you want, Chun Li, for example. And then you realize that you don't like superpower, so you change to another person called Ken. He can do Hadouken. Now, you see, everyone, why is it that when you play a game, you don't ask yourself, who am I? You choose a character, everyone. The word, who am I, tells you you need to find yourself. That's pure nonsense. Don't look at my share screen, look at me now. Look me in the eye, I'm telling you. Everyone, this is pure nonsense. How many people who attended such course to find themselves found themselves? And if you change as a person all the time, then you're always finding pure nonsense, understand? No, you don't find yourself, everyone. Cancel this away. Say, I choose first. Just like you choose a character in the game that you want. And don't ask, why am I doing this? Why? If action create result, shouldn't you be doing it first, then the why will come later? For example, I give you an example again. Okay? I had a conversation with some of you, and then somebody told me this, existential crisis. Who am I and why am I doing this? I need a bigger why to achieve bigger things. When people say, I need a bigger why, they are trying to mystify very simple things by asking themselves, who am I and why am I? Everyone, don't complicate simple things. You're trying to make yourself feel important. No, everyone, you're not that important, everyone. You're not as important as you think you are. This universe will continue to move even if you die today. correct? Yes, we are important, but we are not as important as we think. But in order to feel important, we start to mystify things about ourselves. That's why we ask questions like, who am I and why am I doing this? And people like Tony Robbins will always sell you the course because they know you want this. So they prepare music for you, they prepare lighting for you, they prepare pyrotechnic for you, understand not? And then you come back, you tell me, CK, I feel very motivated. 2 years later, the result the same. But 2 years later, CK has breakthrough results again and again, and then realize. So you choose your character, and then you do it, and then the why will come, and then it's a loop by itself. You choose, look here, you choose already, you act, give you the feeling will give you the identity again. So it's a 1, 2, go back. It's a loop. Okay? 1, 2, loop. 1, 2, loop. Don't who am I? Why am I doing this? Understand? Like for example, I don't know why I need to make more money. Okay? Ask your question, why do you need a reason to make money?